Hello, thank you for that. Welcome to Armley Local Council Election Hustings 2024 in the Denison Hall. There's a couple of things I just want to check with you about the Denison Hall. If anybody wants to smoke or vape, you can't do it in here. You have to go outside into the smoking area, which is out and round the front. If you go out there, you're not allowed to take your drink with you. So your drink stays here. So if that's your won't, then that's what you'll have to do. We're not expecting fire alarms. There are fire exits clearly marked. So if you hear an alarm, it's time to get out. Great. About me, my name's Pete. I've lived in Armley over 20 years and in Leeds for over 30 years. But this evening isn't about me. It's about you in the room and your local candidates. I'm going to work through some submitted questions, giving each candidate a couple of minutes to answer in turn. I may ask the audience your opinion, and if we have time, I might take some questions from the floor. Firstly, I'm going to introduce your candidates, but before I do that, I want us all to recognise that we appreciate them standing and offering their time both as a candidate and being willing to give their time and effort in public service. Not all of us are at a stage that we'd be happy to do that, and I think we should always recognise that public service takes a lot of commitment and effort. So thank you all for standing. One last thing, it's my birthday today. I know. So in return for me trying to chair in an impartial way, I'm going to ask you to follow my directions and trust me to try and get it right, if that's okay with you. Thank you.
And I think at the end we should sing to you as well.
Yeah, you might sing to me. It might not be as good as my mother, who's 93, who rang me up to sing to me at 9:30 this morning when I was in a Teams meeting. So I'm going to do your candidates in alphabetical order with their surname. So first of all, we've got Richard Banks. Do you want to give him a little wave, Richard? Richard was born in Armley and he's lived here all of his life. He raised his family in Armley and like them, he went to the local schools. After leaving school, he commenced a plumbing apprenticeship and worked as a plumber for a number of years. His experience at work led him to become involved in the trade union movement, and he spent the last 36 years of his working life as a trade union representative. After retiring, he wants to continue his passion to represent and support the people by standing to be your local councillor. So a round of applause for Richard. There are other candidates that are standing in this election, but since they're not here, I'm not going to tell you anything about them. Your second candidate is Lou Cunningham for the Green Party. Lou is a lone parent who lives alone in the aviaries with her son and her pets, and she works as a nurse part-time in the NHS. When not working, she loves to be involved with the community, and she's a board member of numerous local groups and organisations. And her favourite thing is to catch up with the community and planning events and activity. She was a councillor with the Labour Party, but found that her values and principles were more aligned with the Green Party, with the added advantage that she could be a more independent voice for Armley. Being a councillor is the best job ever, and she'd love to be able to do it again for you. So a round of applause for Lou. Rachel Martins is standing for the Yorkshire Party, but unfortunately she can't be here. So Sean MacDonald has offered to represent her. Give everybody a wave, Sean. Sean is the Yorkshire Party candidate for Rothwell this year, and he is on the Yorkshire Party Executive Committee. He's a retired police officer with 36 years of experience and also has experience of working with Leeds City Council across many services. He's formerly a resident of Armley. Yeah, he used to work in Armley. He's formerly a resident here, and he's worked with the local area committee, and his family lives within the community. That's right. A round of applause for Sean. And lastly, Dan for the Lib Dems, easily recognisable. Dan came to Leeds from Leicester in 1995 for university and loved it so much he stayed. He's committed to equality, he's passionate about liberty and social justice. He wants to serve on the council to improve transport, education and housing for Armley and the rest of the city. He's also keen that successful community-led projects such as the new Wortley Community Centre are supported and encouraged by the council. He's lived in West Leeds since 2007 and currently lives in Armley. He works at the University Leeds for the National, and it's got off the National Centre for Atmospheric Science. There we go. So a round of applause for Dan. Great, we're going to get on with questions. Question number 1 is from Philip Cave. He's not here, so I'm going to ask it for him. All of the candidates have spoken about how embedded they are in our community. Please, could they describe 3 ways in which they have made a contribution to our community? And please be specific and talk only about this ward. I think, Sean, you might have a slight dispensation. So I'm going to give the microphone first to Dan.
I think most of the stuff that I've done in Armley, let me something specifically to Armley. Right. Okay, I do regularly pick litter in the park, though I'm not part of any organised litter picks. I'm genuinely not sure there's anything that I can say. I live here. I tidy the place up occasionally. I'm not a member of any organised groups like looking after the park or the Armley Civic Trust or anything like that, although I do support all of their work. But I'm not going to lie and say that I'm, out every night doing litter picking when I'm not. So I think I'll have to leave it at that. Okay. Not a great answer, I know, but there we are.
Good evening. Obviously, my colleague Rachel Martin, who couldn't be here this evening, obviously offers her apologies. And again, best place to answer this particular question, which again I can't do on her behalf. My knowledge of Armley, again, is because I've lived and I've worked here. So nearly 40 years ago for the first time, or over 40 years ago now, and obviously I've got family in this particular area, but again, that's not going to be particularly relevant other than a bit of local knowledge that I have. Again, I just think it's important that although our candidate can't be present, that the Yorkshire Party actually show respect to the voters, because we're asking for your vote, and that we actually tell you what we're about. But unfortunately, there's certain specifics I can't go into because I can't personally answer on behalf of a candidate, albeit I've tried to gather what information I can do, again, to present to you this evening. So I thank you for your patience.
We'll find an easy question.
Okay, thanks. You don't mind if I stand? I'm not being aggressive, and I just find it easier. Three things about. Well, first of all, I've lived in Armley all my life, as Peter said. What have I brought to Armley? Well, I've been a member of the Labour Party for nearly 40 years. In that time, I've been school governor at a number of schools. I was the chair of governors at one school, so that's one of the things of the 3. Another one, I have done litter picking, plenty of litter picking over the years, and I've done certainly more in the last 6 months. The third one, I suppose, is I've supported the Labour councillors in Armley and the things that they've brought to Armley. So, they've brought, well, hopefully we'll cover things later on in the meeting, but, I've given them support, so that's the third thing that I've brought to Armley. I've got another one. It's me. I'm here. Thank you.
I'll stand up as well. So I could list lots of contributions, but I don't think it would be fair for me to say that they're my contribution to the community. I'm involved with lots of diverse groups in the community who bring a lot to Armley, and I'm very grateful to be able to be involved in them. So I can give you examples such as being involved with the Friends of Armley Park, helping with their events, being a key member of organising those events. But again, those events don't happen because of me, they happen because we've got a great team of people and volunteers working on those. I'm involved with different boards around Armley, so with Armley Helping Hands, which again are a great organisation. So I can take some credit for being involved and helping them along the way, but most of the work that I'm involved with in the community comes from that joint effort, comes from the fact that the community work together and we all want the same improvements. I will give one small example of one that I will take a bit of credit for, which came about from being in one of the local cafes the other day. I met a woman who I'd helped when she was in a dire housing situation when I was a councillor, and she's now moved to an area within Armley. And I said, oh, I was going to go up there and just drop some leaflets off. And she said, me and my daughter, who's about so high, we'll do them for you. And so she sent me a picture later of the little girl posting the leaflets. And then from that, I had another phone call from a family who've moved there and are so happy. So that made me so, I was so pleased to have been able to do that. So I'll take a little bit of credit for helping that family on the journey. But I think the other things that I'm involved with in the community, I'll take joint effort with the rest of the amazing volunteers who are involved with those ventures. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, the next question is from Shazad Mahmood, and he is in the room, so I'm getting a runner.
Hi there. I've just got a quick question about the Armley Carcrofts. It's just been a long time that there was going to be development about a supermarket, but nothing happened. But I just wanted to know that if anything's going ahead or if any plans going to go ahead with the supermarket. Thank you.
And I think Shazad was also anxious that we try and improve the retail offer within Armley shopping area, weren't you? Great. I'm going to give that to you first, Richard.
Okay, thanks. Well, regarding Carcrofts, I can honestly say I don't know. I know there was plans a number of years ago for a supermarket. I believe it was where Blakey's is or where Blakey's was. It didn't materialise. I don't know why. But I agree with yourself. We need to do something about Town Street. We need to improve it considerably. Get other businesses involved and so on. But regarding Carcrofts, I honestly don't know and I can't answer you.
Yep.
Oops, I'll stand up this time. From the information that I do have, I'm aware that there's a local towns programme for Leeds City Council where they've actually put forward, I think it's £75,000 towards projects in Armley already, as it is. Again, I do think it needs a lot of regeneration, a lot of investment that's unfortunately gone to Leeds City Centre, and if like town centres outside the centre have been neglected for quite a number of years. I used to work in Armley again 40 years ago, and I'll be honest with you, not much has changed in terms of enhancing the infrastructure again when you walk down Town Street. I'm aware there's also been a bid put through from Active Travel England in terms of, again, more regeneration money, which is I've read was in the region of about 2.9 million. I think the thing with that, though, there was going to be a public consultation held last July that's been put off, and apparently that's not going to be until after the elections before it comes up again, which I think is somewhat disturbing that it's been taking so long in respect of that, because ultimately, whilst it's on hold, unfortunately, businesses, residents, etc., everyone suffers because of that. So the sooner that is put through and looked at, the better.
Similarly, I don't know anything about the Carcroft supermarket either. I think I vaguely remember hearing about it, but that's all. I agree with Lou and Sean that Town Street needs some work and some investment. It had some a few years back, and they replaced all the lampposts and things like that, but it didn't seem to a great deal. I think there's work there that needs to be done.
Thanks, Shazad. Yeah, well, with Carcrofts, we know that it's an area of private land. And I again remember the consultations and was involved when they had all the boards up with the potential plans. I think part of that and part of the bigger picture that I think we need for Armley Town Street is more communication with the private landlords, with the people who own the shops, whether it's owning the land, whether it's owning the shops that are now empty, so that we can work together to get the kind of shops that people want to bring back to Armley. I'm lucky enough to be involved with Armley Action Team, who are based just off Armley Town Street. And with our work, we've started some kind of events and activities which are hoping to try and revitalise some of the areas of Town Street. So we've held events like the spring markets, we've held events in the Pocket Park, and all of those kind of bring people to Armley Town Street. And I think that working with local businesses means that we can only move further forward. I think with that in mind as well, it's about encouraging people to support local businesses. So anyone who's here who fancies joining Denison Hall tonight can see Mary at the end of the night and pay their dues for in some way again to support a local business. I think it's about really working together, looking at the kind of space and creative ideas that we might want to use. So it might be that some of the empty shops can be used for pop-up events, for different activities. We've had a lot of feedback from some of the younger people in the community who'd like to see activities happening in the evenings. So I think it's all really, it boils down to being able to communicate and having key people able to do those negotiations with the landowners, with the private landlords as well.
Thank you. Michaela, I need a runner. Come on. Could you give the microphone to Michaela? She's got a question.
Could you please tell us your stance on HMOs, particularly in Armley, and actions that you do that support your stance if you're successful?
Thank you. Thanks, Michaela. So in terms of housing, we all know the great need in Armley for family housing, and we all know that there are lots of drives to break down family homes into flats and HMOs. I think as a councillor, you've got more input in terms of seeing the potential planning applications that are coming through, so you're able to alert the local community to those planning events. We're also very lucky that we do have lots of the planning articles published in our local West Leeds Dispatch, so people can follow and then also go onto the portal and make their own comments. I think it's really important that we look at what the community needs, and we have an over-intensity of HMOs in many of the streets, many of the areas, and I've worked with local residents, supporting them in their objections to those. Sometimes it's not easy for people to access the portals digitally, so I think making as many people aware and really helping other people in the community if they want to raise objections is really important. I think linked into that, we need to look at, I know that there's a drive for selective licensing for landlords, but I think more importantly than that, we need to look at fair charters for landlords, and we also need to take a look at the stock of our own Leeds City Council properties as well, and ensure that the standards are across the board are good enough for everyone who needs a family home.
I'm aware that there's areas in Armley where there are a lot more HMOs than there are in other areas, and I know this can cause a problem for neighbours. partly because there's just more people, and partly because if there's 4 houses with 10 houses with 4 people in each on a street, that's probably 40 birthday parties, which can be quite noisy, things like that. There's issues. I definitely do think there needs to be a maximum number of HMOs in an area, because I used to live in Headingley when I was just after I graduated university, and more of the streets over there are just houses in multiple occupancy from one end to the other, and there's no continuity of people who live there. There's no sense of community. It's like all of these things do need, but people need a place to live. So I'm not saying there should be no HMOs, but there definitely should be the council should definitely be capable of limiting them, and that should definitely be, and I should be kept on that. And ultimately, there needs to be more housing available, so that everyone can have somewhere to live. Fairly obviously, I would like to think. I would like to see the council use empty homes management orders more. I don't think that's happened a great deal, so that should increase the stock at least.
Well, as I'm speaking on behalf of Rachel this evening, she never particularly addressed just in relation to a particular point, in relation to local issues. She never particularly addressed that particular point, so I'd be remiss of me to speak on her behalf locally. But having said that, I've had experience as I was working for Leeds City Council out of hours service, and again we also dealt with housing management issues. I'm quite well aware there's a chronic shortage of housing available. Again, the need, it just far exceeds what we can possibly have. The one thing that obviously needs to happen is consultations, again, locally, to make sure that housing's been placed in the right area where it's needed most of all, in effect. Unfortunately, as I say, the need outstrips the demand. We've got to make sure that there's more housing built. Again, our population is increasing. There's plenty of derelict, if you like, sites, etc., that could be used as well in respect of that. And again, because we've all seen it, again, in the last couple of years, on the private market, it's harder for people to get homes out there as well. So we really need to give people a helping hand when we can't supply properties to them through the various different means here, and indeed to enter the private sector. Again, rent guarantee schemes. I've recently come upon one where I've actually been coming across and speaking to somebody who was trying to get on the housing ladder again, having the tenancies finished in one property, they're going to another. And again, they've been asked for 4 and 5 months rent up front, which, to be fair, not many of us carry £4,000 and £5,000 in his back pocket. But ultimately, we need to give people that helping hand. Everybody does have a right to a home, and it's just how we supply it. But obviously, we've got to do it ethically and make sure that it's done in a proper manner that causes the least disruption and upset.
Okay, I'll start with the selective landlord licensing scheme that the Labour group and Leeds City Council are promoting. It's actually active in a couple of areas of Leeds, and they're looking to bring it to Armley. And it's a scheme whereby private landlords have to sign up, they have to obtain a licence to rent out their properties, and it has to be monitored and they will be vetted and all the rest of it. That is an excellent scheme for anyone who lives in rented property. So the sooner that comes, the better. As I say, it's already in place in Harells and in Leeds 10, so it's looking to be brought to Armley, which will be good for the people in Armley. You're right, we need more housing, we need more council housing. I won't say social housing, I mean council housing, run by the local authority for local authority people. And Leeds City Council in the last 5 years have built more council housing than any other authority in the land. If it isn't the most, they are in the top few. They've built more than most. So, they're doing a great job as it is under the difficult circumstances of not having money, and that's down to the Tory government funding. And we need to send a message to the Tories. We need to be telling them enough is enough, and the only way to do that is to vote Labour in this local election. Thank you.
Yes, I was going to see if this draws something from the audience. So I'm going to take 2 points. I'd like to take Michaela first because she asked the question, and she may not feel her question has been answered, or she might have an extra bit to add to it. So Michaela, and then the gentleman sat there.
Thanks for all your answers. There's just some clarification I need. Richard, you spoke about the landlord scheme that's coming in with Labour. I'm completely aware of that and how it works in different areas as well. I would still like to know your stance on HMOs and your actions that would reflect said stance.
Yeah, I understand the licensing is going to cost about £840. How are you going to make the landlords pay it and not have them pass it on to the people who rent the houses?
Thank you. I think the first bit was for Richard to clarify, so I'm going to give the microphone to him and then see if anybody else wants to add any more. Richard.
Okay, well, sorry, I don't know what you actually want me to clarify. What I'm saying is I fully support the stance of the council and the selective landlord licensing scheme.
So, Richard, I think what she wanted to know was your personal opinion on whether there's too many or too few HMOs. I think that was where she was coming from.
Well, you heard where I came from. I said it, didn't I? There should be... Yeah.
You spoke about building more council houses. That's not... If we built 100 more council houses, they're not going to be HMOs. What I'm talking about are properties that we have that are around, that come up for sale, that get built and then turned into HMOs.
Yeah, I think she's talking about people coming in converting houses into HMOs and whether you think that's too much.
No, well, I don't like the idea of it. I think there should be council housing, full stop. And regarding the other one, well, I do hope you're not saying that we don't go ahead with the selective landlord licensing scheme. It's got to be a good thing for tenants.
I think what he was asking specifically, I'll try and take this.
What you're asking is who's paying for it?
Yes, I think that's what he was specifically asking, and whether there's a risk that just gets passed on to the tenants.
Well, I'd like to think that it wouldn't, and you know, let's have a look and see what kind of money these private landlords are making. You know, if they are genuine and they are looking after their properties and looking after the tenants, you know, their tenants, then they will do it.
Thank you. That's it. We'll panel, is there anybody else that wants to say anything about that issue and the questions? Anybody?
I think that's a valid point, and I think it would be worth looking at what's happened in other parts of the city where the selective landlord licensing has taken place, because I think that is a genuine worry that people might have.
You all right?
I actually do think John has a valid point. There's private landlords do tend to pass on their costs again, and I think we have to be very, very careful of that. And again, whilst I always encourage as many housing options as possible, I do think, like I say, the more council housing that we do have, for me, the better. Because again, whilst Leeds has been doing quite well compared to other authority areas, I do believe, again, we can do more. But again, we have to be very, very careful that, again, we're living in a cost of living crisis, funds are tight. Again, people have a lot of escalating bills, the last thing what do is add to their problems. And again, so I think we need to be very, very carefully looked at before that goes ahead.
I'm broadly in favour of licensing, but I do understand your point about the costs being passed on to the tenant, which almost certainly would happen because ultimately landlords are in a business of making money. I do agree that the solution to that is more council housing, where the rents are not then controlled by the private owners. We used to have much less private ownership of rental properties in this country 20 or 30 years ago, and I think we all know who's got that one. But given their representative is not here, I suppose we should we'll have to not. It is a concern. I don't know how you can limit the amount of HMOs without having some sort of licensing scheme. And if the licensing scheme has a cost, that should be borne by the landlord. But that's going to then get passed on. I'm not sure how you square that circle.
That woman's hand shot up like so I think she's moved to speak. We better take it.
Thank you. It's a point of clarification for all of the candidates to help people who are here tonight. I used to teach planning law to councillors. You cannot stop somebody converting a house. You can stop them having the licence. That is planning law that was brought in 2012 under the National Planning Framework. So it's the current, well, five prime ministers ago, are we on now, that brought that law in. So when an application to convert a house goes to planning, you cannot take your own views into consideration. You have to look at the law that's set out. So I just thought that would help all people here to understand that there are two parts of licensing and conversions, because I know quite often that people think that councils can stop something, but there's a government law behind this as well. So I just thought that might help all the candidates and people here tonight.
At the risk of getting involved in a long dialogue over something that is probably getting quite specific, I'm going to stop it there if that's okay with you all. I have a question here that I'd really like to ask you all, and this is a testimony to Jenny and Kat, who have been helping put this event together. So a round of applause for Jenny and Kat, please. This is a question from a 12-year-old student at Dixon's Academy. How will you tackle antisocial behaviour like drug use and harassment?
Actually, it's again, it's something that I'm particularly familiar with in terms of dealing with. Again, now I'm going to speak. Again, I can't speak on behalf of virtually. Like I said, I think we're on the same page this one anyway. I was with West Yorkshire Police for 30 plus years, again, policing the streets. And again, we've actually taken our eye off the ball. The primary focus from policing should be on the prevention and detection of crime and ultimately upholding the peace. Again, we've been led away from that. We don't have as many frontline resources as we used to have, far from, due to the government cuts that were instigated in 2010 onwards. However, we do have a particular issue when it comes to actually management of the resources that we do have currently. And again, it's under a Labour mayor, and personally I do believe it's been mismanaged in relation to how the resources are actually being dealt with. Now, when it comes to antisocial behaviour, you do need the actual contact with your communities, the actual Bobby on the beat. It's an old-fashioned saying, but again, the presence does actually deter a crime from happening. Again, we've seen that reduced in over recent years. Now, when it comes to antisocial behaviour, again, there's limited funds, I totally get that. One thing I always encourage people to do is to make sure that it's apparent that you're reporting these incidents. Police always target, again, and put resources where there's the most demand. I totally get that. One thing, again, when it comes to it as well is, a lot of police are now deployed in roles which aren't front-facing, which again needs dressing and looking at. But this is going to be a wider question as well, because it's something that can't be addressed, if you like, in a local level. It's something that's going to be done at a mayoral level. You will be aware that there's 2 elections happening at the same time this year, in terms of the local elections and also the mayoral election. The mayor, through the deputy, does have control of policing and crime. Now, it's just so you are aware, again, when it comes to the deployment of officers, there has been, in my view, a complete mismanagement in respect of that. It's only by, again, having the people actually on the ground to actually interact with the communities, do you actually get that intelligence-led base to actually deal with it. And one thing I will say as well is that there was a motion put through by the Liberal Democrats, again, last year, to actually get extra funding, again, to get more police presence on the streets, and that was rejected by the Labour majority, again, which was unfortunate. What I will say is when it comes to drugs as well, we do have to target again at street level and get that policing presence, but a lot of it needs to be the ongoing educational programme that goes through with it. And people have to be told, and again, this has to be done through the educational process. A lot of times, again, it's a multifaceted approach. It's not just a policing issue, it's a societal issue, and it's something we should all, if you like, take a zero tolerance approach to when it comes to drugs in respect of that. Now, just if I'm okay to go for a few more seconds. When it comes to police resourcing, one thing I would like to say, people, I'm sure you'll all agree, you don't see police on the streets as much as you would like to see. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I appreciate there's various issues that can't be dealt with, that have to be dealt with in office, etc. We get more cybercrime, etc., frauds, etc., and things like this, which doesn't require street presence. But just to give you an example of waste, during the course of I like submitting freedom of information requests, if I'm being totally honest, to find out what our resources and how our monies are being spent. An example I'll give you. We all know that police, you get updated training days, etc. Under this mayor, we actually have 2 days of cultural awareness training. Now, for me, that should be done, again, on the recruitment process. We should be hiring candidates who police the communities that they serve. And again, and they should also reflect the communities that they serve. Now, on the freedom of information request from last year, I'll be very quick, we've got a best part of 13,500 members of staff, including police officers, taken off the street for 2 days at a time. So that's 27,000 lost days, again, right across the policing spectrum. Again, now, if we have any issues within West Yorkshire Police, when it comes to issues of police conduct, I think there were actually 6 dismissals when it came to issues regarding race and discrimination. So again, I think it's about mismanagement of resources. I appreciate I've gone on a bit there, but I just think it puts it in context.
Well, I'm not going to pretend that I've been in I was a copper for 30 years, because I wasn't. Antisocial behaviour of all sorts, including drug use on the streets, and which is a crime. Of course, there's a problem. It affects everybody. We've had, in my own house, we've had an issue with some local lads regularly smashing the bus stop to pieces, though they seem to have stopped now. Again, it does come down to resources. It's like you need presence on the streets. You do need you do need visible policing. You've got to have policing by consent, but you've got to have somebody there as well. And at the moment, the police, to be fair, just haven't got the resources to respond to low-level stuff, because they've got to, keep an eye on the higher level stuff. And so the lower level stuff is always going to fall by the wayside in those circumstances. So I realise it's a slightly strange thing for a Liberal to say, but we probably do need an increased police budget, because no one's free to live their lives if they're scared to go out their door. So, yes, the capped budgets for policing need to increase. There's no two ways about that.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the student who submitted the question. It's great to have a question from a younger member of Armley. So I'm really happy that that they submitted a question. So they asked specifically about what would we do about drugs and harassment. Well, I'm a nurse who works within drug and alcohol services, so I have an awareness of the public health issues around those problems that we do have in and around Armley. I think that looking to engage more people within the treatment plans that are available, we are very lucky in Armley to have lots of programmes that will help people who do have issues with drugs and alcohol. I think that the public health side of things is something that, again, we're lucky that the Armley community work together on those issues. And I think in terms of the kind of public safety, it's something that people report a lot about, to do with either where they're living or on the streets in and around Armley. And I think a lot of those things do rely on that kind of continual reporting, but they also rely on communities supporting each other and kind of helping each other out. So looking at, again, the wider issues of kind of poverty and inequalities, which mean that many of these issues are just prevalent and not really worked on. I think from the harassment point of view, again, I think that we can look at the areas where communities pull together and work together and look out for each other as a kind of significant shift in helping people on in those issues. I think overall in Armley we are lucky enough to have a local community police force. Many of those officers have been in and around Armley for lots of years, so they know a lot of the trends, they know a lot of the people, they know a lot of the issues that we face, and they do hold regular events as well where we can access them. And I think that's really important to still have our local community police force as well as a kind of central force. And I know that a lot of people rely on being able to access the local officers on the beat as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, the facts are, since 2010, this Tory government have cut the number of police officers by 21,000. That's why we haven't got people on the, bobbies on the streets. 21,000. I mean, the Lord Mayor, the Labour Lord Mayor of West Yorkshire, the Labour Mayor, not the Lord Mayor, the Labour Mayor of West Yorkshire, Tracy Brabin, since she was elected, she's put 900 or recruited 900 police officers and other staff. So it's going the other way. She's now responsible, or her assistant is responsible for policing in West Yorkshire, and it's going the other way. But they still require funding from the government. So, things are improving. If I'm elected, I will work with the police. I will work with the police and other groups. I will fight, and this is a promise, I will fight to get funding to tackle the root cause of these problems. And in particularly, I'm looking at youth services, because that's where we need to start, with the young people. And it's great, as Lou says, that it's come from a young adult as this question, and they're the people who we need to be engaging with in the schools, to tackle the problems of harassment and drug abuse and all the rest of it. So it's simple. Vote for me and I will fight for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Craven has a question, and she's so close I can hand the mic to her myself even.
Thank you. I live at the bottom end of Armley, bordering the Bromley ward. A number of years ago, the Labour Council of Leeds promised to do installation of low traffic neighbourhood for the Victoria Park area. So what would the candidates speed up installation of a low traffic neighbourhood for this area that was promised?
Thank you. And I think Linda was at pains to say we didn't get stuck on just talking about the centre of Armley, and we looked at the whole of Armley. So thank you for that question. Now, who would like to take that first? You would.
Yeah, well, thanks. And you've mentioned Victoria Parks, and those of you who've read my manifesto, I'm including all of Armley, not just this lower end of Armley, all of Armley, the Spring Valleys, the Billingbroks. Although it's Bramley, it comes under the Armley ward. We've got New Wortley, the Clydes, the Alfords. They also come under Armley, even though they're in New Wortley. We don't have Armley Heights, they're in Farnley and Wortley, even though they're Armley. So it's a bit of a mishmash. But, if I'm elected, I will be representing people from all of the ward. Regarding the specific, I understand, and I haven't been involved with it because I wasn't a Labour councillor. I've never been a Labour councillor at this stage, but I understand there is something happening with that, and it will be happening shortly. I mean, we've councillors in the room who may be able to answer that question, but I honestly can't.
Again, it's unfortunately to answer it this particular way because I'm not the candidate I'm standing this evening, and unfortunately it's not a specific issue that Rachel Martin has addressed with me. So to be fair to you, it'd be unfair for me to actually give an opinion or her opinion when I'm not aware of what that actually is. But I do know a lot of views and the way we're working with things to try and get through is by public consultation and local demand for particular in respect of particular issues. But again, specifically on what you've just told me, I cannot again speak on behalf of the actual candidate. Unfortunately, she's not here this evening, and again for that, I do apologise again.
Again, I'm not aware of the particular issue because that's not the area I live in. I do live in the Bramley end of Armley, but not that bit. I'm in favour of low traffic neighbourhoods when they are supported by the residents, which they usually are, because they do reduce traffic. It makes the streets much more accessible for cycling and for walking, and broadly speaking, I'm in favour. So I would, if I'm elected, I will chase it up for you and I will get back to you. Best offer I can do.
Linda, I'm with you. I'm dying to know as well. I spent hours of my time with you guys down at consultations, and I know we went through all of those plans so many times. So I'm dying to have a nosy at what's happening. So hopefully if I'm back able to look into the Civic and have more of an input, I'll be the first to be checking up on that as well.
I'm going to bundle together a couple of other questions which are related to this transport theme. So that was a specific one about a low traffic neighbourhood in Victoria Park. But there are questions about whether or not we can make the bus services any better, whether we might get light rapid transit into Armley, and pedestrianising town streets. So I think it's an opportunity for each of you to reach into your transport bucket and talk about a vision about how you would like to see things move forward, because I think Linda's started the ball rolling on that. So I'm going to give it to you first, Dan.
As Pete said in my introduction, I've lived in Leeds since 1996. So I always say when I see that I'll believe we'll get a mass transit system in West Yorkshire when I'm sitting on it with a ticket in my hand and not before. But moving on from that, and assuming that there is some political will to produce one, obviously Leeds and West Yorkshire in general needs a mass transit system. It's the largest urban area in Western Europe without one. I mean, there's no two ways about it. What I do find very distressing is when you see a map of the old Leeds Corporation trams that were late 60s, I think, they got taken away, something like. And you sort of look at it and you think, yeah, that'd do. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would be a great deal better than we've currently got. Having said that, on a more short-term basis, I do support franchising the buses rather than allowing running them in the private way that they are currently done. And I think that does have the potential to improve things. I'm not sure how quickly it will do it, given that one of the severe constraints is the shortage of drivers, as I understand it. I do use the buses fairly regularly. Yes, that is one of the reasons for the shortage of drivers. If I understood that muttering correctly. There is stuff that can be done in the short term, and I do think it is one of those things that, as a country, we don't do public transport very well. We need to regard it as we do the roads, we need to regard public transport as infrastructure and just say, well, we need to pay for it. It's like, it doesn't run, the trains don't run without subsidies, the buses don't run without subsidies, but we still need them. So if we're going to be spending that sort of level of money on them, we should have the control. The control should be in the hands of the council. I don't have strong opinions either way on pedestrianising Town Street. I'm sure it would be nicer to walk along, but I do worry that it would make access very difficult, particularly for people with mobility issues. So I think that would have to be a go out to consultation and see what people thought situation.
Unfortunately, as we see when it comes around Yorkshire, when it comes to plans in relation to transport, we tend to find that they're always promised, then postponed, downgraded, cancelled. And when you get to my age, it's a regular theme that you've seen it many times over the years. As some political colleague says, yeah, Yorkshire needs, as again, Leeds, Yorkshire, we need a mass transit system. Elsewhere in the country, the service properly. up here. We're not. And again, that's also an issue that can be put forward both, we can push locally, but also in the mayoral elections as well, where they have overall responsibility when it comes to transport and transport infrastructure. So that's something, again, that the Yorkshire Party, again, wants. Again, locally, our candidate here, Rachel, again, along with the Yorkshire Party, would like to see, obviously want to see more buses. Again, there are those major issues. But also, we'd like to see an extended travel pass across Yorkshire. Again, something that to do with buses, rail, etc. There's unpenalised outside of hours, something that covers all of Yorkshire. And that conversation will have to be had again with the other local authorities around us, but it is something that is achievable. So again, there's a lot of work to be done in respect to this one. Again, it's going to be one where there's not going to be an instant fixed solution in respect of that. Now, when somebody mentioned in respect of Armley Town Street again, I was actually covering the pedestrianisation of it, was part of the point. That was part of the proposal with the Active England money that was coming through. It's going to be looked at again once the proposals eventually, or when it goes to consultation again in July. And that's something that'll be on the table then, no doubt. Until then, unfortunately, it's wait and see. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, as someone who has a bus pass, I use buses on a regular basis, and yeah, they do need improving. And you know, the action that the mayor has taken, bringing them back into public control, can only be a good thing. I believe you said you moved into Leeds in '86. 96, sorry. Well, it was 86 when buses were deregulated. I remember it well. Prior to that, you know, the bus services in Leeds weren't excellent, but they were far better than what they are now. And we need to get back, you know, get them back in public control and improve the frequency and all the rest of it. Regarding the mass transit system, I understand there are plans in place, and phase one, although it's still out for consultation and the rest of it, phase one, it does look like there will be a route from Leeds city centre to Bradford, and that will most likely come through the heart of Armley, straight up Armley Road, straight up Stanningley Road, which can only be good for people in Armley. And if I'm elected, I will work with the mayor, because the mayor will have control over it. And, you know, she's Labour, I'm Labour. I'm sure between us, both being Labour, we can work together and make things even better for people of Armley. Well, okay. No, well, I'm not worried, and to be honest, I don't think the mayor's worried either. So yeah. Well, I think I've said enough. Yeah.
I'm not even asking, mate.
No, that's all right. Yeah.
Thank you very
No.
much, Dan.
Thank you.
Do you mind? No. Sorry, yeah. Sorry. The other thing I wanted to cover was Town Street. Yeah, you know, it's been going backwards and forwards. There is now going to be consultation in June, and people have said it is right. It's the people of Armley who need to be consulted. It's the business owners on Town Street who need to be consulted on whatever the proposals are, whether it's a bus gate or fully pedestrianised or whatever. It's the users who need to be consulted, and hopefully that will be done in a proper manner, and we'll come up with something that it will be an improvement for Armley Town Street and for the people that use it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
So I think for me, the main aspect of transport is finding some common sense solutions. I agree with bringing the buses back under the local authority control, but I think when we're looking at schemes in and around highways where there are supposed improvements in place, we need to make sure, I think my plea would be for having more people round the table, so the people who use the buses, the people who use the trains, the people who are walking around the streets, the people who are needing to drive for work, the people who are needing to use either different modes of public transport to get to work, get back from work, take the children to school. I think there's not enough joined up thinking with our transport plans, and I think that means that schemes are planned, they go ahead, and then by the time they're actually implemented, they're already out of date, and they're already not taking into account some of the issues that are affecting the local people. So looking at some of the recent highways work around the gyratory and around Branch Road, some of those things have had a massive impact into people's journeys, into work, into school. The 16 bus can be on Armley Town Street, which is half a mile long, for 20 or 30 minutes in the morning. You can literally walk into the city centre more quickly than you can get the bus some days. And I think some of the really ambitious plans, for example, to have pedestrian access through the gyratory, which were then shelved, would have been really good. I think they were the things that people wanted to see. They wanted to see some really kind of a bit more exciting developments around transport, which would be more relevant to people. I mean, the city centre is 2 miles, and you're thinking about the opportunities for people for work. Walking from the city centre back to Armley on the roadway is a horrendous walk. You know, fine, you can go along the canal, but if you're working at a certain part of the city, trying to walk back and trying to navigate the roads is dangerous for pedestrians, and it's not a pleasant journey either. So I think my plea would be to involve the people who are actually using those routes in the decision-making process. And so that brings me back to the Armley Town Street plans as well. I think we've had a lot of feedback from people about those plans, and they are people who use Armley Town Street, who work in Armley Town Street, and who have businesses there. And I think their voice should be at the forefront. And I think it links in with looking at general use of our spaces and also pedestrian safety. I think that has to be a key feature of any of the transport issues that we're looking at.
Just going to take a temperature check of the room, and can you get ready to take the mic over there because somebody's hand shot up. Firstly, thank you Gary and Alistair who asked those questions. They're both in the room, but I lumped them together, so apologies to you about that. I think I'd like to take, I've got 3 more questions I'd like to work through if you're happy with that, and we'll take a couple of points to the floor. Now that's the temperature check. Is the room okay if I carry on that long? It's probably about another 15-20 minutes. Okay, let's take the both. So we'll take that man first and then you.
Thank you. That's a fair point, thank you. Good evening everyone, thanks for attending. It's an interesting to sit here live and listen to candidates. My question for all the candidates would be, what measures would you put in place to ensure that social housing receives relevant upgrades? And I asked this question because 4 days ago on the West Leeds Dispatch, it was brought to my attention that there's been 12.9 million aside for 250 social housing. 100 are in Armley, and I've crunched the numbers, and the upgrades are related to windows, insulation and doors. Crunched the numbers at 12.9 million over 250 houses is £50,000 per house. Now, I don't think that's relevant public funding, so the question is related to that. How could you ensure that public money goes appropriately to social housing that's awaiting really, really needed upgrades of heating, windows, more so in high-rise flats.
It's a question rather than a point.
We'll take them both together.
Okay.
Thank you. I have lived in Armley for more than 20 years. I will be proudly celebrating my Armleyversary, 22nd Armleyversary next week. I'm proud to live here. I know many people are, but some people aren't. Which pains me because I see a lot of the great work that's going on. Could the candidates tell me why you're proud to be representing Armley, and also, if you are elected, what residents of Armley can say that they're proud of Armley about by the end of your term in office? Thank you.
Right, that wasn't what I was expecting at all. So we've got two very different questions. Yeah, that's all right. You were right. I was wrong. Candidates, could you answer the question about social housing first, and then we'll take what makes you proud to be Armley? And I think I'm going to Lou first on this.
Both at once.
No, take the social housing question.
Okay. No, thanks for that question. And I think it links into a point I made earlier that as much as we want to see new houses built, I think we really need to take a look at the stock that Leeds City Council already own and work with residents on those kind of repairs that need doing. That's all I can say on it, really. I just really think that there needs to be the upgrades that have been promised. There needs to be that assurance for people. We're seeing so many families now that are housed in the high-rise flats. We need to make sure that those places are safe, well maintained and well cared for, so that those families can actually enjoy where they're living.
Thank you. Yeah, and you touched on heating as well. I'm not going to repeat what Lou's just said. I agree with every word she said there, but you touched on heating, and we're aware what's happening with the burn cells, and hopefully that's going to get off the ground. I believe it's... That's what's happening with the burn cells. Yeah, exactly. I'm agreeing with you. So hopefully that's going to take place in 2025. So hopefully that, it won't be shocking then, it'll be resolved. And I also understand proposals have been put forward for the Cedars to have a ground source system there, which can only be better for the heating system, which can only be better for the people who live on the Cedars, and hopefully it will expand through other areas of the ward. So yeah, I agree with you.
Again, I hope I can give you proper feedback in respect to this one. Again, I can't speak personally for the candidate who isn't here this evening, but one thing I can speak about, which again may resonate with you or not, is the fact that I used to work for the Leeds City Council out of hours emergency service, which also dealt with out of hours emergency repairs. Now, one thing we used to get was basically repeat repairs, the same issues coming up time and time again. Again, one thing that I think Leeds City Council doesn't do well is actually manage our money properly in respect of that. Work should be done, properties should be upgraded, but we need to do it again and get best value for money. And I don't think that's been done. What should be happening is that, and again, it's something I'll be assisting, again, if I was lucky enough to get elected in Rothwell, which is where I'm standing, I would push for is a full audit in respect of the council processes and systems and the finances that are going towards that, because it's happening time and time and time and time again, where people are calling out, again, that money's been paid, again, by you, all of you, to cover this. And again, people are getting the property upgrades that they need, or indeed the repair service, again, that they deserve. So that's something I think needs addressing on a massive scale. And again, that's one of the first things they should be doing. And overall, I think it would save money and also give value to those, again, in Leeds City Council properties.
Obviously, there's a limited budget for these sort of upgrades, but I agree with Richard and with Lou and with Sean. They do need to be done. If there's waste that does need to be kept an eye on for, I don't think, with respect, Sean, I don't think repeated audits of budgets is necessarily the problem when the issue at the moment is there just isn't the money at all. But obviously you've got situations you read about them in the news about people living in flats and houses that are covered in mould and aren't healthy, and you need to deal with the acute problems there as soon as possible, obviously, but there does need to be a programme of upgrades as well, because it's not fair for people living in places they can't afford to heat, or places that are unhealthy and making them ill, because that's the only option. It's like, there needs to be investment in all the social housing, and there needs to be more of it, but the existing stock needs to be repaired as well. Quite right.
That one, and then that one.
How can you start a new project with a £12 million that's been awarded to the Cedars when you run out of money on the Averys and left many houses there still waiting for their cladding?
One of the issues, it seems to me, with housing in general is a lot of housing needs improving, but we also have a real shortage of the right skills. People wanting to get into the building trade and have with the right skills, if there's that sort of money being put into housing refurbishment, surely job creation is something that should be part of that.
I thank you for your question. Actually, we don't have any serving councillors here to answer it, so I think you're right. There is a question about sequencing things, but we haven't got anybody who's actually accountable for what you asked. Okay, yeah, and
we've had someone who has been a councillor.
she what?
We
have got somebody who has been a councillor. So thank you. We'll take those 2 points and ask the candidates to respond to them. So there's a question about how you might. There's a question about skills, and there's a question about the money running out and how you might sequence it. Okay. I think I'll start from this end, if that's okay. Are you all right with that? Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree that it's really frustrating when projects start and aren't completed, especially when there aren't communications around it. And they're the kind of things that I enjoy delving into. So hopefully, if I am elected, there'll be things that are on my list of things to look at, because I agree that it's very unfair when residents feel that they're promised certain upgrades and then it's partially delivered. I don't think it's fair for residents at all. And in terms of skills, yeah, I think that's an area where we can just keep on encouraging people with apprenticeships and looking towards developing their skills.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the facts are, on these projects, the government have reduced the council's budget by 2.7 billion, not million, billion, since 2010. That is a lot of money. Had we have still got that money now, the council, all these projects would be able to go ahead. Yeah, let me finish. Let me finish, please. So, yeah. And on the one about skills, I mean, Pete did say I was a plumber. You're not suggesting I get my tools out again, are you? Okay, thanks. But no, we need to invest in the youth. We need to invest in the youth. Apprenticeships, you know, it's the same in most crafts, engineering and all, you know, motor mechanics, the lot. They're just not there because the apprenticeships were taken away. And what we've got now, not being derogatory, there's no cowboys in the room, are there? Right? Without being derogatory, you know, with cowboys and people who do 6-week courses, and you know, they're not proper apprenticeships, they're not proper skilled people, I'm afraid, and we need to turn that round.
Again, just to come directly to your point, I think it's a question about openness and honesty and where we're coming from, because ultimately if that information isn't given out as to why certain projects aren't being carried out, then you don't know. And I think to a certain extent projects, again, should be completed where they can be, but ultimately it's about giving out the correct information to people. If something can't be done, then put your hands up and say why it can't be done. The electorate deserve to know, again, why things aren't happening and giving reasonable excuses for this in respect of this. If it can't be done, it's as simplistic as that. I think a lack of information is one of the biggest barriers and again causes a lot of issues. And I think I see that from, again, from your particular point, sir. As going to, when it comes to mentioning skills, etc., part of the Yorkshire Party policy, and certainly it's promoted in the mayoral campaign, is to promote more specialist colleges, again, to fill the skills gap. We need more people in the building trades, health, social care, green technologies, digital technologies. Again, more specialist places to be made available. My own son took advantage of one a couple of years ago when he actually left what we would call the normal mainstream education to specialise at a college whereby he's doing engineering. Again, we should carry him through, and he's getting specific relevant training along with his other education input, again, which will lead him to full-time employment, and hopefully that will serve the community good. But again, there needs to be a lot of investment in respect to specialist colleges to make sure that we actually do address the actual skills issues and shortages. Thank you.
With regards to specialist colleges, of course we do have the Leeds College of Building in Leeds, so you would hope there would be plenty of builders, but I know there isn't. Like Lou said, if I'm elected, I will investigate and find out what happened to that project. I don't know why you've got a maintenance project which is being left to languish when a new build is happening. My guess is it's probably they're probably different budgets. But that's obviously not, you can't let houses that currently exist fall down just because you want to build some more. But yes, investment in skills so that there's all the workforce able to do these things is very important.
So my resident planning expert's got a hand in the air again. Is this a point of information? Because thank you, I thought it might be.
I will also say I'm not originally from Armley. I only moved here in 2018, and in another life, my portfolio was housing. So, housing revenue and account is where council tenants' money goes into when you pay your rent. That is the money that repairs your houses, not council tax. Because a lot of people out there like to try and say that they're paying for council houses. It's actually the residents that pay for the repairs. The only other money is government grants. So, as Richard said, government grants have been going down. So I just wanted to, that people understood when the gentleman from the Yorkshire Party said it's all your taxes. It's not. It's the rent from the people who live in the council properties pays towards it. It's called the housing revenue account, and you can only repair houses with that. So the more right to buys there are, the less council houses there are, there's less money to repair your houses.
I'm going to let you come back quickly, Sean, on that, but one thing I do want to note for all candidates and those of you in the room, the two questions that are drawn the most from the audience are all to do with housing stock and housing. So I think it's a chance for all of you to reflect that there's a lot of opinion out there, and there's a chance for you lot to say you've got a lot to ask your candidates.
Yeah. No, total respect for expertise and respect of that. However, what I will say to you is government grant isn't free money. It comes from taxation. We all pay, as you know. Thank you.
Right, we're not going to do any money point scoring. Now, the next question I wanted to take is from Simon Rickles, who is not sat in his seat now. I'm so sorry. Clancy, you can ask it again because we'd forgotten what the question. But the question is, what makes you proud to live in Armley, doesn't it? But I'm sure it'll come better from your lips, Clancy.
It was, specifically about what makes you proud to be representing Armley, and if you are elected, what will the residents of Armley be able to say that they are proud about at the end of your term? Thank you.
Sean, that's another of these Gordian knots that's impossible for you to answer. Do you want to try or do you want to not bother? Right, be quick with this one then.
Yeah. Sorry, we're very, very quick. Again, I appreciate, again, not being the candidate, it's going to be a quick flip in respect of that. Again, I've got family in the area, daughter, etc., grandsons. I'm proud of them, proud of, again, where they live. Again, I've got ties going back to Armley 40 years myself, so from a personal point of view, I've liked to, been in Armley, again, lived here previously, worked here, again. We've also got, again, what makes us proud being from Armley. I think we should celebrate all the good things about Armley as well. We've talked a lot tonight about things like, how we need a lot of infrastructure and a lot of issues that we do have. There's also been a lot of good things happen that have come from Armley. A good old example I would use, Alan Bennett, playwright, etc., from Armley, Barbara Taylor Bradford, another one. Again, if you like cricket, Phil Carrick, one of my favourite bowlers. There's lots of people, like I said, that make you proud, like I say, when you think of Armley. So, again, I'll leave it as brief as that and move on to those who still live here.
I'm proud to live in Armley because it's an interesting, vibrant community, and we've talked about problems in Armley, but as Sean said, there's got a lot of good things about it as well. Armley Park's lovely, which presumably, the canal walk along the canal is very nice. The town street's usable. When I first moved to Armley, there was about 3 shops, and there's a lot more now. It's a nice place to live, and I'm proud to be here.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, well, as Pete said at the beginning, I've lived in Armley all my life, and I've no intentions of leaving. I've seen many changes in that time, and Armley's still a wonderful place. And I see things on Facebook, people say, oh, I'm thinking of moving to this area. What do you think? And you get these negative comments from people who live in Armley and they're at the other side of a keyboard and you can't do anything about it. And it's really annoying. And it's a wonderful place and there's wonderful people in Armley. The groups that have been mentioned earlier, all working together to improve Armley. I want to work with them, right? I want to work with them and make Armley how it used to be. I remember going back years, Armley Town Street. My mother used to go there every day, buy fresh food. And it wasn't just to go shopping. She used to see all her mates there. And, it was a community. And Armley Park were the same. I remember when we were kids, we used to go to Armley Park every Sunday and have a picnic. And you couldn't find grass to sit on because there were that many people there. Everybody from Armley were there. And that is what it was like. You just wouldn't believe it if you walk on there now. So it's changed. It was a community. But if you go back to 1979 and Margaret Thatcher, she said, there isn't such a thing as a community. And that's when it changed. That's when it's all changed. Well, she's no longer here. There's others there. But we need to turn it round and we need to bring it back how it used to be. So, if I get elected in 4 years' time, when either I stand again or I don't, I want people to remember the 5 pledges that I've given. And we've covered most of them tonight. And the housing's the big one, transport, crime, social behaviour. I want people to say, Richard Banks has made a change. Let's elect him again. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So I love Armley. I feel like Armley is my heartland. I live and breathe Armley. Some of the happiest times of my life have been in Armley. particularly when I was able to represent Armley as a councillor. People say that when you do a job you love, it doesn't feel like work, and that's exactly how I felt every single day. And I hope to feel that again. What I would like people to feel proud of is not at the end of the 4 years. I'd like people to feel proud at the start of it. I'd like people to be coming along the journey with me. I'd like to finish the work that I started in Armley, and I'd like everyone to be involved in it. So I'd like us all to be working together as a community and being proud of Armley every single day.
The woman in the pink top.
May I ask Richard what he's going to do about the parking in St Bartholomew's School? You know where you live? Yeah? There was an accident the other day out there, outside your house. 5 cars involved. Speeding, too fast. Parking all over the place. From Tong Road, all along Middlecross Street.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, well, I would say that will be my first piece of casework if I'm elected, right? Because I live right on the corner, as you know, and I cannot get out of my drive or in my drive. If I'm out, it needs dealing with, and I'm sure it's something I can deal with, yeah, and it will benefit everyone else in the street, hopefully. But it isn't just there. There's other schools, and there's other things. While I've been campaigning, I've had 4 emails from people talking about parking in their streets where fire engines can't get down and so on. So it must be bad. It must be, you know, it's worse than I expected. But yeah, I'll take that on board. They're the kind of things I want to be dealing with as a councillor. You know, I've been a trade union representative for over 40 years prior to retiring. I've represented people, individuals, groups of people. That's what I want to keep on doing. And cases such as that. And the other one you mentioned, the accident the other night, where it were nothing to do with the school because they were on school holidays, but somebody came round the corner in a car that he couldn't control. He'd hired it for the weekend, couldn't control it, went into a car, lifted it off the ground, that hit a van, and then he went into another van. Four cars all wrote off, and it's speed, and that's a 20 mile an hour. Evidently.
As if by magic, the man that I wanted to come into the room has entered the room. You've got a question, Simon. Could you ask it of the panel? And I have a supplementary that I'm going to add on to it, if that's okay.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, with Jim McKenna stepping down, and I feel he's probably left it a bit of a rudderless boat in the Armley Labour Party. How you guys see the dynamics if you get elected to work with the Labour Party?
So actually, Simon, you also asked that Alice Smart is taking maternity leave as well, and that I think this is a question about the dynamics within the local representation if you get elected. I wanted to add one more question to this because several other people have asked this question, and it's about a genuine conflict which may occur for all of you when your constituents want you to take a position that is not the position of your party, how you manage that conflict. So I think this is about you, how you would be as a councillor, how you would work with the other elected representatives, and those occasions where your loyalties are split and your constituents want you to do one thing and your party may not want you to do that. Okay?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, but I've come to order, sir, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that is a sexist question. In employment law, that would not be allowed to ask about someone taking maternity leave.
Okay, that's me that's done that, so I'm really sorry if anybody's offended by that. I think what...
I run a charity, my staff. I would get taken to tribunal. I'd be sued.
What for telling us?
All right. Really, no, don't compound this. It was my error. And I apologise to you personally, and I apologise to anybody else in the room that's offended by that. I was trying to ask a question about the dynamics amongst the elected members within Armley and how they cope with that. So can we just lay that down? I don't want to get stuck on... It's all right. Let's not get sidetracked into this particular issue for the moment, because we've got a clear question for the candidates to answer. So if you can remember the question, I'm going to give it you one at a time. Dan, could you start on this? If you could just listen to the candidates, please.
Firstly, I will say that I absolutely support parental leave for councillors and MPs and other electorate representatives, and certainly there should be procedures in place where that can be done with as little disruption as possible. And also congratulations to Miss Smart for her incipient motherhood. So that's all I'm going to say on that one. It's important as an elected representative that you have your priorities are in order. You know, it should be the city, which sometimes will involve doing something which is not ideal, but is ideal for the city as a whole, but not usually. And then it should be your local area, and then thirdly, it should be your party. And you should be in a position whereby you can disagree with the bulk of your party on some things. Not everything. Some things are going to get you, if you disagree, you're going to get expelled from your party, but you've got to decide whether that is your case, the case. I will always endeavour to put Armley first, because that's what you're supposed to do as an elected representative. Sometimes, as an elected representative, you're going to be in a situation where the obvious thing to do is not an ideal thing to do for your constituents.
Like getting to bed with the Tories. That's one of the problems that we've got now.
I don't entirely disagree. I wasn't a member then. I will come and talk to you afterwards about it, if you like. As regards to working with other parties, I don't mind, on a more general level, I don't mind working with other parties to get things done, if things need to be done. There's always going to be disagreements in elected representative bodies. Of course there are. That's what they're for. It's like, one of the problems that we do have in, I think, this country as a whole is caused by the electoral system, which results in often very unrepresentative bodies where people aren't represented, or different courses of opinion aren't represented. And you do sometimes end up with extremely large bodies of any particular party, which aren't really beholden to their electorate. They're beholden to them at the party. And I think it's important that electoral representatives have enough independence from their parties that they can disagree with them. So that would be my position on that. Does that answer your question? To me?
Okay.
I just feel that your insight, your knowledge into some of the situations that have been brought about tonight has been absolutely invaluable, but I feel that was desperately unfair, that I feel that Pete was making a point about an elected councillor. The relevance of maternity leave, it was about the dynamics and how elected members will work together. It was not relevant to whatever the reason for leave, and I think Pete has done a fantastic objective job tonight, so I just feel I need to make that point.
That's very kind, but I made a mistake.
So thank you. So I think I'd like to start by saying whatever happens at the local election, there will be at least 2 Labour councillors representing Armley. So whoever the person who is lucky enough to be the other candidate will be working alongside 2 Labour councillors. And I think that's fine. I think you take a common sense approach to working towards general aims for the good of Armley. There are lots of working examples of that. So, for example, the Inner West Community Committee has all 9 councillors from around the Inner West. They can be of any party persuasion, and they all work together to make decisions that are for the benefit of the community. So I think in terms of cross-party working, I don't see an issue with that. I think where I am lucky is that with the Green Party, I'm not whipped to toe the party line. So if there are decisions where the community feels that they want support, so even if the council was making a decision and other councillors were told to back that decision, I would be able to have an independent view on that. So if it was important to my community, say for example, if there was a community centre that was under threat of closure and the council was saying, this is what's happening, I would be able to stand up and not have the constraints of a party to sway my decision. I'd be able to represent Armley fully.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, well, possibly that puts me at a disadvantage, because if I'm elected, I will be part of a party that's democratic, and we make democratic decisions. Now, as I've said earlier, I've been a trade union representative for many, many years. And when I first got elected as a trade union representative, I wasn't given a magic wand. And I'm quite sure that if I'm elected as a councillor, I will not be given a magic wand. And therefore, when residents come to me with issues, I won't be able to resolve them all. Whether that is because it just cannot be resolved, or whether there is, let's say, interference from the Labour group. Right? Either way, not everything will be able to be resolved by me. And I understand that, but it's how I come back and explain that to my constituents. That is the important thing about it. And people accept that. Many people know when they do raise concerns, they are not going to get a result, but they want basically their day in court. They want to be able to raise it with someone, and they want somebody to act on their behalf, whether they can resolve it or not, and they want them to come back and explain why they can't resolve it. And I can do that, and would do that. Hopefully, in an ideal world, I'd be able to resolve everything. But I'm being realistic, and I know that that can't happen. I hope that's answered the question.
To take your point, sir, it's important that no matter what party you're from, that if you're in council and part of council, that you do work cross-party to ensure that you get the best for your constituents. And I suppose democracy means that everybody gets represented, and that representation should apply to, again, right across Leeds and across, if you like, all the different ward areas. I joined the Yorkshire Party because I believe in local representation, if you like, decision making being held primarily from Westminster to Yorkshire, powers there, and again giving more people a local voice in the decision making that happens. In the Yorkshire Party, we don't have a whip system. The actual candidate, again, if elected, can actually, we do have councillors, again, in other parts of Yorkshire. They make the decisions that they feel is best for their actual ward area. As simplistic as that. There's no debate over it. It comes down to it. It's the constituents that you cover, they come first. Again, anything else comes secondary after that. We do have party policies again, but again, it is down to the actual individual conscience of the actual candidate in terms of the actual elected councillor in that respect. One thing I will say is, again, because we don't have a whip system, again, you get the best, again, in terms of the actual representation. I would ask you to just have a look at voting records, and you will see that certainly we have a ruling Labour majority. They block vote nearly every single time, and you'll find that it's not done for the betterment of yourselves, it's done on party lines. Take a look, if you haven't looked at voting records before, take a look at them, and you will see that quite clearly. Please take a look at them. Thank you.
I would like, I think it's getting to a point where we should draw things to a close. So I think I've got that correct in the room. So if it's okay with you, what I'd like to just let the candidates have, I'd like literally 1 minute of a closing statement from each of you. So you can sharpen your mental pencils now. And then I'd like a round of applause and thank you for all of you that have come tonight. This has been the first time we've done this in Armley, and we'd quite like to do it again. So we welcome your feedback as to how it's gone. Now, who would like to make a closing statement first? I'm going to start at this end and go down that way, if that's all right.
I live a thing, living, and I would love to represent it. I'm not going to pretend that I wouldn't make mistakes, because of course I would, but I would do my best to make sure that I wouldn't make mistakes, and I would represent you to the absolute best of my ability, with the intent of improving life for everybody in Armley and the wider city. Thank you very much.
Again, can I just say on behalf of, again, the candidate who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, Rachel Martin, her expertise is in engineering infrastructure. So again, a lot of what we talked through tonight, again, she'll be far better placed than I am. So again, she has great plans that she can put forward in respect of this. We do have, again, a Yorkshire Party policy in respect of policing and crime. They are failing massively, both at local level and indeed at mayoral level. Bear in mind there's 2 elections this year, locally and indeed the mayoral elections. The Yorkshire Party come third back in 2021, again, with the Conservatives in free fall, we're the ones who can actually challenge Labour. What I would say to you is that just, if you're happy with the way things have been, and you're happy with your lot, then keep voting the same way. If you need positive, effective change, then look towards the Yorkshire Party, and Rachel Martin in this area, and Bob Buxton as the Mayor, Yorkshire Party. Can I just say thank you very much again for listening to us this evening, it is appreciated, thank you.
Thank you. Right, well, this is about the local elections, as we know, but I don't think there'll be anyone in the room who is happy with the current government. The cost of living crisis and all the rest, everything that goes with it, the fuel bills and all the rest of it. So we need to send a message to that government, and the best way to do that is to vote Labour. It's only Labour, by voting Labour, that we will send that message. So vote Labour on the 2nd of May. Let's send a message to the government that we're not happy with them. Vote for me on the 2nd of May, and you will be getting a hard-working, someone who's passionate about Armley. I've lived there all my life. It's not a cliche. I am passionate about it. I do want to make changes. Vote for me and give me that opportunity to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for everything that you've contributed tonight. I would like to urge you to back the candidate who you feel has got Armley's best interests at heart. Back the candidate who you feel has got a proven track record for being there for Armley. And back the candidate who will still be there with and for Armley at the end of the campaign trail.
Right, so I'm going to give an opportunity for the candidates to give the audience a round of applause, because it wouldn't have been any good if they hadn't turned up. Very good. Thank you very much, everyone. we'd love to do this again. If you've got any feedback, that would be great. We would welcome that. Friends of Armley Park has got an email address, but there are people who have organised it here. Could you give a wave, Jenny? Give her a round of applause. Give a wave, Kat. And Josh and James have helped with the technical things, so thank you to those two as well. And should you want to become a member of the Denison Hall, it costs you a tenner. They've got forms behind the bar, and I think it would be really good to get more use of this club. Now, thank you. There's a couple of people waving their hands in the air that say they want to thank me for doing this. You can thank me for doing this right now.
Sing happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Pete. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. 61 years young. Thank you very much, and safe home to you all.